It was supposed to be a fun night. A night filled with laughter, neon lights, and the sound of roller skates gliding smoothly across the polished floors of the local roller disco. Peppa Pig and her friends had been looking forward to this night for weeks, but what they didn't know was that something dark lurked beneath the neon glow. Something far worse than anything they could have imagined. By the time the night ended, none of them would be the same again. Peppa Pig had always loved the roller disco. Every Friday night she'd rush to the rink with her family, giggling and racing with her little brother George Pig. The flashing lights, the upbeat music, and the thrill of skating around with friends was her favorite part of the week. But tonight was different. Peppa had arrived at the rink early. She had planned to practice her moves before the others showed up, hoping to impress them all with her skills. The music had just started, and the rink was mostly empty, except for a few early customers. Peppa took to the floor, her roller skates gliding effortlessly beneath her as she weaved in and out of the glowing disco lights. It felt like the perfect night. Then the lights twitched. At first, Peppa thought nothing of it, a technical glitch maybe. But as the music started to crackle and screech, she knew something was wrong. The usual upbeat music was now replaced by a low, stomach-turning vibration sound. Peppa slowed her skating, her instincts telling her that something wasn't right. She looked around the rink, but the place was nearly deserted. She felt goosebumps all over her skin. The door to the skating rink slammed shut, and Peppa Pig knew she was trapped. Her heart began to beat loudly in her chest. She hadn't seen anyone close the door, and the sound felt scared, like it had been shut on purpose. She looked to the front desk, but the attendant wasn't there anymore. Then the most terrifying sound of all, an evil, hollow laugh. It echoed from the shadows in the corner, followed by the slow, deliberate scrape of something metal on the floor. Peppa's pulse quickened. She knew that laugh. She had heard it in her nightmares before. And then she saw it. A man, dressed in all black with a blood-red mask covering his face, stood just beyond the edge of the neon lights. It was watching her, watching with a cold, empty stare that sent a surge of fear through Peppa's small frame. She froze in horror. The figure took a step forward. The scrape of metal on the floor grew louder. The figure was holding something in his hand, something shiny, a knife. Peppa's heartbeat quickened in her chest. She had to escape. She pushed herself into motion, her skates screeching as she turned toward the door. But when she reached the exit, it was locked. No way out. She was trapped in the Peppa Pig roller disco with someone evil. Desperate, Peppa quickly made her way toward the back of the rink, looking for another exit or a way to hide, but the lights flickered again, and the figure was already behind her. The figure called out her name, Peppa Pig. Its voice was deep, like someone that had been hardened by years of pain and hatred. "You're not going anywhere." The figure advanced, its footsteps heavy from the all-black combat boot he was wearing. Peppa's mind raced, trying to think of a way to escape. But every instinct told her this wasn't just some random stalker. No, this was someone far worse, someone much more dangerous. All Peppa Pig wanted in that moment was to escape this horror. She skated as fast as she could, weaving in and out of the pillars of neon light that now seemed to pulse with a steady rhythm. But the figure was faster. He kept getting closer, his presence suffocating her. Suddenly, there was a sound of roller skates coming from the far end of the rink. Peppa's heart was almost jumping out of her chest when she realized it was her friends. They had finally arrived. But as they skated closer, Peppa's hope quickly turned to something scary. It wasn't them. The figures in front of her were wearing the same blood-red masks, and they moved in unison, their skates clicking ominously as they surrounded her. "There's no escape," one of the masked figures said in a cold whisper. Peppa felt a sharp pain in her chest. She couldn't breathe. They were closing in on her, trapping her with no way out. But then there was a strange chemical smell in the air, and a feeling of unease overwhelmed Peppa. It was suffocating. The sound of a loud crash made Peppa jump. The rink's music stopped suddenly, and all the lights went out. For a moment, everything went dark. When the lights came back on, Peppa was alone. The masked figures had disappeared. She was still full of adrenaline as she tried to regain her bearings. What had just happened? Was it all some twisted game? Did she imagine everything, or was this nightmare real? And then she heard it again, the sound of roller skates moving faster this time. A dark figure emerged from the shadows, its face still hidden behind the red mask. But this time, Peppa noticed something. The figure was wearing a Peppa Pig shirt. It was her own shirt, the one she had worn that day. It wasn't just any stalker. It was someone who knew her, someone who'd been watching her for a long time. Peppa began to run, skating faster than ever, but the figure was relentless. With each turn, it was there, waiting for her. She didn't dare look back, her focus solely on finding a way out. She skated past the bathroom door and saw the flickering of lights. It was her only chance. She rushed inside, praying for safety. But when she stepped into the small, dark room, she stopped dead in her tracks. The walls were covered in pictures of Peppa Pig and her family. But these pictures were different. They had been torn, scratched and altered with a pen, the faces twisted into grotesque, nightmare versions of themselves. The last picture in the row was the most horrifying. A photo of Peppa Pig herself, but with her eyes scratched out. And in the corner, written in red, was a chilling message. "I know your secret, Peppa." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. For the next few minutes, Peppa struggled to find a way out. She tried everything, kicking, screaming, banging on the door, but nothing worked. The room was silent. Then she heard the voice again. "Did you really think you were the only one?" he asked. "Did you really think this was just a game?" The figure appeared in the doorway, its blood-red mask glowing slightly in the dim light that filled the room. Slowly, it raised the knife. Peppa's heart was in her throat. But before the figure could make its move, a loud crashing sound erupted from behind the walls. The entire rink shook. The figure hesitated, its head snapping to the side. A second later, the wall collapsed. A massive, dark shape emerged from the rubble. Peppa couldn't believe her eyes. It was a scary, monstrous version of herself, twisted and deformed. Its eyes glowed red, and its body was covered in patches of fur and skin that seemed to move and shift. Peppa's stomach turned as the scary monster moved toward the masked figure. The two figures collided in a violent struggle, each one trying to overpower the other. The masked stalker screamed as the monstrous Peppa tore into him, ripping off his mask and revealing a grotesque face beneath. It was Daddy Pig. The revelation hit Peppa like a freight train. Her own father, the man she trusted, had been behind the Peppa Pig terror the whole time. His twisted obsession with her had driven him to madness. He was determined to end the love and affection received by the infamous Peppa Pig. As the monster Peppa and Daddy Pig fought, Peppa made her escape, her heart breaking. She had no idea what was real anymore. All she knew was that the horror was far from over, and it had only just begun. If you enjoyed this terrifying Peppa Pig horror story, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Did you find this scary enough? Share this with a friend who loves creepy lost episodes. Comment below if you'd ever dare visiting the Peppa Pig roller disco. And remember, never trust the smiling ones.